Hello again, dear friend. Can you feel it? That hush in the air when the morning light first touches your garden. There's a softness to it, like the world is holding its breath. The birds haven't quite begun their songs, and the tea you've just poured still curls with steam in your favorite chipped mug. Maybe your hands rest gently in your lap, warm from the cup. Maybe there's a breeze just enough to stir the wind chimes and rustle the leaves. It's a small, quiet moment, but inside it so much beauty waits. That's where our story begins today. Not in a store, not with money, not with a trip to the garden center, but right here, with what you already have. You see, the world often tells us that to have something beautiful we must spend. That a lovely garden must come with high-end pots and boutique decor. That luxury costs. But my dear friend, we know better, don't we? Beauty doesn't come from price tags. It comes from intention, from care, from imagination. What if I told you that this very season I transformed my garden completely with just a few humble finds from Dollar Tree, no fancy catalog orders, no designer fees, just pizza pans, placemat spoons, and a whole lot of heart. The neighbors think I hired someone. But the truth is, I simply saw possibility where others might not. And today, I want to share it all with you. Every trick, every transformation, so you can bring that same quiet magic into your own backyard, no matter your budget, no matter your tools. Because you don't need youth or riches to create beauty. You just need a spark. And maybe a friend to walk beside you as it glows. So settle in. Maybe pour another cup of tea. Let's dream together and see what lovely things we can make from the simplest of materials and the deepest parts of ourselves. Remember those old terracotta saucers that once sat beneath your flower pots? Maybe one still lingers on your porch, stained by years of soil and sun. It might even have a small chip in the rim, the kind of imperfection that makes it easy to overlook. But what if I told you that very piece, forgotten and ordinary, could become the crown jewel of your garden? Here's how I turned mine into a bird bath that looks like it came straight from a boutique for under $3. First, I flipped the saucer upside down and balanced it gently on top of an empty flower pot. That pot had once held a struggling tomato plant long since composted, but now it served a brand new purpose, a pedestal. A little dab of weatherproof adhesive helped stabilize the saucer if wind's an issue in your area, though often gravity and care are enough. Then came the Magic Touch smooth river rocks from Dollar Tree. I scattered them across the base of the upturned saucer, letting the soft grays and browns nestle into one another like pebbles in a creek bed. A splash of water brought it to life, glistening, rippling, cool. And then I waited. It didn't take long before the birds noticed. First, a curious robin, then a pair of finches. Before I knew it, my backyard had become a miniature resort, wings, fluttering feathers, dipping beaks, splashing joyfully. Each visit a small performance, a reminder that even the smallest gesture of welcome, a bit of water, a few stones can invite such life. Best of all, this lovely bird bath stands at a comfortable height. No stooping, no hauling heavy bags of concrete or ceramic, just simple stacking and a bit of heart. Now, every morning as I sip my tea, I glance toward that saucer. I watch the gentle ripple of water and the arrival of another visitor, grateful. Because that little bird bath doesn't just nourish the birds. It nourishes me too, a daily reminder that beauty blooms in simplicity. Still useful just like us. Do you remember fireflies? Back when the evenings felt longer and we'd sit out on the porch just watching the sky change color, there was a kind of hush before the stars came out. And then, just like magic, the first soft glow would appear among the trees. Little flickers of light drifting through the dusk like tiny lanterns on invisible strings. That's the feeling I wanted to capture when I made these fairy-light mason jar lanterns. And you can do it too, right from your kitchen table with just a few quiet supplies and a touch of imagination. Start with plain mason jars. You probably have a few tucked away from old jam batches or button collections. If not, Dollar Tree has them for $1.25 a piece. Then grab a strand of battery-operated fairy lights, they're in the seasonal aisle, and work beautifully for outdoor use. Now comes the fun part, gently coil the lights inside the jar, tucking the battery pack down at the bottom. No glue, no tools, no wires. Just light. You can keep the lid off entirely, or if you like, drill a small hole to run the light strand through for a neater look. When twilight falls, place these glowing jars along your garden path, tuck them between your favorite flower pots, or line them up on your porch railing like tiny guardians of the evening. Some nights I hang mine from shepherd's hooks, and when the breeze moves the branches just right, the lights twinkle like stars caught in a jar. They don't plug in, they don't buzz, they don't cost more than a few dollars each, but they feel expensive. They feel like something made with care. And maybe that's the real charm. In a world that moves so fast, these little lights invite us to slow down, to watch, to wonder. Because when the sun sets and the garden turns to shadow, it's not darkness we see its potential. It's the glow of possibility, just like those fireflies from years ago. Still flickering, still magical. And now they live right here, in your garden. Maybe you've stood in your garden before and whispered, now, which one was the oregano again? It happens to all of us, even the most seasoned gardeners. Herbs can be sneaky like that, growing wild and lovely until we're not sure what's basil and what's lemon balm. But instead of buying plastic markers or ordering expensive metal tags, I found something far more personal and oddly charming, right in my kitchen drawer: wooden spoons. The kind you might have once used to stir a pot of soup for your grandkids. Here's how I turned those humble spoons into some of the loveliest herb labels I've ever seen. First, I gave each spoon a gentle sanding, just enough to soften the edges and bring out the grain in the wood. You can skip this step if you prefer the weathered look, but I find it therapeutic, almost like polishing an old memory. Then, using a wood-burning pen or just a fine-tip permanent marker, I carefully wrote the names of my herbs along the handles. Thyme, parsley, dill. Each one felt like a small celebration honoring the plants I grow and the meals they'll someday season. You can paint the spoon heads in soft garden shades: sage green, buttery yellow, lavender blue, or leave them plain and let the sun do its work. Over time, they fade and gray, gaining character with every passing season. Plant them directly into your herb bed, standing tall and proud. Unlike plastic tags, these don't clash with the earth. They belong. And if your hands aren't as steady as they used to be, that's okay. Wobbly lines and slightly off-center lettering only make them more special. They become a part of your garden story, not manufactured but made. Now when I walk past my herb patch, I see more than just labels. I see spoons that once stirred sauces, now standing guard over green sprigs of flavor. I see care. I see connection. It's a simple thing, but isn't that always the way? The smallest touches often carry the most meaning. And these spoon markers, they're not just organizing your herbs. They're telling your garden story one handwritten word at a time. Do you remember the plastic ice cube trays we all used before refrigerators made their own? I still have a few cloudy from age tucked in the back of a drawer. They used to clatter with frozen cubes for summer lemonade or keep peas chilled for picnics. But today they found a new life. A far more beautiful one. When I first stumbled across the idea of using ice cube trays as planters for succulents, I thought, well, why not? Their neat geometric compartments, so tidy and uniform, seemed perfect for the tiny root systems of succulent babies. And I promise you, friend, this simple repurposing project looks like something straight out of a high-end gardening catalog. Here's how I did it. I started by filling each cube slot with a cactus potting mix, light, well-draining soil that these little desert dwellers adore. Then I gently nestled in small succulent clippings, the kind you can propagate from an existing plant or pick up affordably at a local nursery. Dollar Tree even has starter trays sometimes, and those work just as well. Each row became its own tiny landscape. Rosette's jelly beans, string of pearls, a miniature garden within a grid. I placed the tray inside a shallow wooden box for added charm, but you could just as easily sit it on a sun-drenched table or shelf. Over time, the succulents begin to root and thrive. You can even trim and transplant them once they outgrow their tiny homes. The effect, surprisingly elegant. People who visit ask where I bought it. They lean in close, admiring the symmetry, the colors, the calmness of it. But I just smile because I know it came from a leftover kitchen drawer, not a boutique. And the best part? No heavy lifting. No bending. These trays are lightweight, easy to water, and perfect for hands that prefer gentler tasks. It's amazing how something so plain, a forgotten freezer tray, can become a stage for living art. Kinda like us, don't you think? Simple beginnings, quiet transformations, and now, blooming in the most unexpected ways. Have you ever sat beside a gentle stream and felt your shoulders drop, your breath slow, your thoughts soften? That hush of water over stone, it doesn't demand your attention, it just soothes. Quietly, steadily, like a lullaby for grown-ups. I've always dreamed of capturing that same feeling in my garden, but fountains can be heavy, expensive, and a bit intimidating. Then, one afternoon, I looked at a stack of mismatched plastic bowls from the Dollar Tree and thought, why not? What followed was one of the most peaceful, rewarding DIYs I've ever created. Here's how I did it. I chose 3 plastic bowls of descending sizes, small, medium, and large, all in soft, earthy tones. You can use what you have or paint them if you'd like. I drilled small holes in the bottom of the top 2 bowls, just enough to let water trickle down from one into the next. Then I stacked them gently, largest on the bottom, with small inverted plant pots in between to give them height and separation. At the very base, I placed a small solar or battery-powered pump, also found at the seasonal aisle or online for a few dollars. When I filled the top bowl with water and turned the pump on, it began. The sound. A soft, bubbling trickle that danced from one level to the next. The water caught, the light sparkled over the sides, and suddenly, my little corner of garden felt like a spa retreat. I surrounded the base with smooth stones and planted creeping thyme and trailing alyssum nearby. The result? A peaceful oasis. No plumbing, no electricity, no back strain. Just plastic bowls and imagination. Sometimes I'll sit beside it with a book I don't plan to read, just letting the rhythm of the water settle my spirit. It's not a grand fountain, it didn't cost hundreds, but it gives me peace. And isn't that the true value of anything we place in our garden? Not how expensive it looks, but how it makes us feel. This little fountain born from plastic reminds me daily serenity doesn't have to be earned. It can be made with quiet hands, kind thoughts, and a few simple things. There's something deeply comforting about vintage things, the softness of faded color, the way time leaves behind a gentle mark instead of a scar. They remind us that beauty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just whispers, "I've been loved." That's the spirit I wanted to bring into my flower beds when I looked at a pack of white plastic spoons from Dollar Tree and saw something more than utensils. I saw stories, ones we could write by hand. This little DIY is one of the simplest in the bunch and one of the most satisfying. Here's how it works. First, gather your plastic spoons, the kind we usually save for parties or picnics. Give them a good wash if they've been tucked away for a while. Then, using chalk paint or matte acrylics in soft garden-inspired colors, sage green antique, white pale lavender coat each spoon fully. Don't worry if the brush strokes show or if you miss a spot here or there. In fact, those tiny imperfections are what give them character. Once dry, take a small square of fine sandpaper and gently distress the edges of the spoon bowls and handles. Just enough to let a little white peek through like a hint of time-worn patina. Then, with a permanent marker or paint pen, write the names of your plants in flowing, elegant script: zinnias, cosmos, snapdragon. The result markers that look like they came from an antique garden shop in the countryside. Push them gently into the soil beside your plants. Over time, the weather will do its work, fading the paint just enough, softening the lines, deepening the charm. I love that these markers don't clash with nature, they blend into it. They become part of the landscape, just like a favorite bench or a pair of worn gloves. And for those of us who may not bend as easily as we used to, these markers are tall enough to see from a standing position. No crouching, no squinting, just clarity, comfort, and charm. Every garden tells a story, dear friend. These spoon markers, they're chapter titles. Gentle reminders of what we've planted, what we're tending, and what's still growing in the soil and in us. Some gardens sing in layers, tall blossoms in the back, medium ones in the middle, and soft mounding plants spilling forward in gentle waves. But when everything's the same height, even the loveliest flowers can feel a bit flat. That's exactly what I was facing in one corner of my patio. A dozen healthy potted plants, all blooming beautifully, but something just didn't look right. It felt like they were whispering when I wanted them to sing. Then I remembered those aluminum pizza pans I'd picked up at Dollar Tree. Lightweight, reflective, and beautifully wide, they were meant for the oven, but I saw something else a stage. A way to elevate my flowers without lifting anything heavy or buying expensive plant stands. Here's the simple secret. Flip the pizza pan upside down. That's it. The slightly raised edge becomes a base, and the flat surface becomes a perfect riser for your flower pot. Place your plant on top, whether it's a terracotta pot or a decorative plastic one, and just like that, you've added height and elegance. I grouped mine in clusters of 3-1 on a riser, one directly on the ground, and one on an upside-down plastic bowl for added variety. The different levels create visual drama. Your eyes dance across the display, taking in each petal, each leaf. And the best part, the metallic surface of the pizza pan reflects sunlight upward, giving your plants a subtle glow, almost like they're being softly lit from below. It's such a small thing, but it makes your flowers feel like centerpieces, and your garden like an art gallery. These risers are lightweight and easy to reposition. No drilling, no tools, no fuss. Just imagination stacked on simplicity. I still smile when I walk past that patio corner. Not because it's grand or expensive, but because it feels alive. The pans I once used to bake Friday night pizzas now hold blooming petunias and trailing sweet potato vines. What was once a flat ordinary spot has become a layered story, one of elevation, transformation, and quiet brilliance. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes all we need is a little lift, just a few inches, to let our beauty shine a bit brighter. Do you remember those childhood days when the wind would sing through the trees and we'd listen as if nature had its own secret lullaby? The kind of sound that made you stop in your tracks, just to feel it. Well, I wanted that sound in my garden, not loud or clanging, but gentle, cheerful. A sound that would make me smile while watering the tomatoes or sitting with my book. And would you believe? It came from a pack of plastic cups. This DIY wind chime is pure joy, colorful, musical, and simple to make. I started with 6 plastic party cups in a rainbow of soft hues. Pastels work beautifully, but any color that makes your heart light up will do. I turned them upside down and carefully used a heated needle to poke a small hole through the base of each one. If you're not comfortable with heat, a small hand drill or sharp skewer works just as well. Then, using fishing line, I tied each cup at a different length to a wooden embroidery hoop. You can find both at Dollar Tree or perhaps in your crafting stash from long ago. I tied the strings securely, making sure each cup had space to move freely. Next came the placement. I hung the chime from a shepherd's hook near my lavender patch, where the breeze always seems to stir. And the first time the wind passed through, oh friend, what a sound. A soft clinking melody like gentle bells in a faraway garden. Not overwhelming, just enough to lift your spirit. What I didn't expect was how the sunlight would play through the cups. The translucent plastic caught the light like stained glass, casting bits of pink, blue, and yellow onto the nearby leaves. In the early evening, it felt like my flowers were dancing in colored light. There's something healing about that kind of whimsy, especially when it comes from something so simple, so affordable. And isn't that the beauty of this season of life? We no longer chase trends or fuss over perfection. We find joy in the breeze and the flicker of color in the music made by ordinary things. These wind chimes remind me that our gardens don't just bloom with plants, they bloom with delight. Every gardener knows the moment you step outside after a warm summer rain, only to find your tallest flowers slumped over like sleepy dancers at the end of a long recital. Delphiniums, cosmos, snapdragons. They try so hard to stand proud, but gravity has its own plans. In the past, I might have reached for twine and old garden stakes. Functional, yes, but not exactly beautiful. But then I thought, why not support these blooms with a bit of style? And that's how bamboo skewers and satin ribbon, both from Dollar Tree, became part of my garden's most graceful little secret. Here's how you can do it too. Start with a handful of bamboo skewers. They're lightweight, smooth, and surprisingly strong. Gently cluster 3 or 4 around the base of your tall, top-heavy flower, pressing them into the soil about 4 to 6 inches deep. You want them to create a little frame around the plant, almost like a fence post would around a tree sapling. Then take a soft spool of ribbon. I chose dusty rose for my pink zinnias and sage green for my blue delphiniums, and begin wrapping it in a slow spiral around the bamboo stakes. Don't pull it tight. Let it float like a soft scarf, looping gently as you climb upward. Tie a loose bow at the top or let the ends flutter in the breeze. The effect's stunning. It's as if the plant is being embraced, not restrained. The ribbon adds a pop of color while offering support, and the bamboo blends naturally into the garden bed. You could even color coordinate different areas of your garden with different ribbon hues. Lemon yellow near the daisies, lavender near your salvias. And best of all, there's no hammering, no bending, no heavy lifting. Just a few gentle tucks and twirls of your fingers. This simple, whimsical structure keeps my blooms upright and radiant, even on windy days. And when the sun catches the ribbon just right, it flutters like the tail of a kite, a tiny celebration in every breeze. In many ways, it reminds me of how we support each other. Not with force, but with grace, with beauty, with presence. Because strength doesn't have to be rigid. Sometimes it's soft-flowing and wrapped in care, just like ribbon, just like us. If you've ever wandered through a cottage garden, you know the charm of a winding path, the kind that invites you to meander slowly, pausing here and there to admire a bloom, touch a leaf, or simply breathe. I've always dreamed of having such a path in my own garden, but when I looked into buying stepping stones, well, let's just say the prices made me step away. So I looked at what I had, and there they were. A pair of round cake pans sitting dusty in the back of the cupboard. They hadn't seen a birthday in years, but they were about to become something even better, a story beneath my feet. Here's how I turned them into stepping stones that delight both the eyes and the heart. First, I sprayed the inside of each cake pan with a bit of cooking oil, just enough so the finished stones would pop out easily. Then I mixed up a small batch of quick-set concrete. You can find pre-mixed bags at any hardware store, and you only need a little for each stone. Once poured into the pans, I gave each one a gentle tap to release any air bubbles. Then came my favorite part, decoration. Into the soft, wet surface, I pressed smooth glass gems from Dollar Tree, leftover bits of mosaic tile, even small pebbles I'd collected on walks. One stone spells out grow. Another has a spiral of blue marbles like a galaxy beneath my roses. You can personalize each one, initials, pressed leaves, even shells from a beach long past. After a day of curing, I turned them out of the pans, and there they were. Perfectly round, sturdy, beautiful stepping stones made not just with hands, but with memory. I placed them through my flower bed in a soft, curving path. No more tiptoeing through mulch or stepping on roots. Each stone is a moment, a pause in the journey, a place to admire the view. They're lightweight enough to move if you change your mind, yet solid enough to endure all seasons. And each one is unique, like the years we've lived, imperfect, yes, but meaningful. It's funny how something that once held cake now carries footsteps. From birthdays to bloom days, from celebration to serenity. And every time I walk that path, I'm reminded life leaves traces, and they can be beautiful. Once upon a time, there was a metal colander that strained spaghetti on Sunday evenings. It sat in a cupboard, faithfully catching steam and rinsing berries until the handle bent, and it was gently retired, not broken, just done with the kitchen. But like so many things, and like so many of us, its usefulness wasn't over. It simply needed a new purpose. That's how it found its way into my garden, where it became one of the most breathtaking hanging planters I've ever created. If you've never looked at a colander and seen a planter, let me show you how a $1.25 kitchen item becomes a living waterfall of blooms. First, choose a metal colander, any size will do. The ones from Dollar Tree have those lovely punched holes which turn out to be perfect natural drainage. Line the inside with a bit of coconut fiber or moss to help hold the soil in place while still allowing water to flow through. Then fill it with rich potting soil, gently pressing it in around the edges. Now the fun part, planting. I like to use trailing flowers like petunias, calabrachoas, or even ivy. Tuck them around the outer edge so they spill over the sides like a curtain and nest a fuller bloom like a geranium or begonia in the center. Water it in gently. To hang it, I used a set of strong twine ropes looped through the handles and tied together above. A sturdy shepherd's hook or tree branch works beautifully for display. Over time, the metal of the colander begins to soften in color. The rain darkens it, the sun warms it, and it takes on a lovely antique patina, the kind that makes guests lean in and ask, "Where did you find that?" And the answer, you didn't find it. You reimagined it. I have 3 of these hanging at different heights near my back fence. When the wind blows, they sway gently. The flowers move like fabric. In the early morning, dew gathers on the metal, catching the first light like jewelry. It's amazing how something so plain, something most would toss or forget, can become a centerpiece. This little colander, once part of a meal, now feeds the soul. It reminds me that beauty is not about perfection or price. It's about vision and the willingness to believe that everything and everyone still has something beautiful left to give. Have you ever stood at the edge of your flower bed admiring the blooms and thought, something's missing? It's not the colors or the shapes, it's the framing. Like a painting without a border, the beauty needs just a touch of definition to truly shine. That's what inspired this next project, and I promise it's one of the simplest yet most striking transformations you can make in your garden. All you need are plastic placemats. Yes, placemats, the kind meant for your dinner table. I found a stack of them at Dollar Tree in soft floral prints and woven textures. Flexible, sturdy, and weather-resistant, perfect for the outdoors. But it's how we cut and place them that creates the magic. Start by choosing placemats in colors that complement your garden's soft sage, creamy ivory, or even metallic gold if you want a bit of sparkle. Using a pair of good scissors, cut a wavy or scalloped pattern along one long edge of each placemat. The curve gives a soft, flowing appearance once it's in the soil, nothing too harsh or rigid. Then simply push the placemats into the soil along the edge of your flower beds with the decorative edge facing up. You can bury them about halfway deep for stability. The result is a clean, intentional border that bends around curves and corners with ease, something traditional metal or stone edging often can't do. And the beauty, it weighs next to nothing. No hauling bricks, no hammering, no sharp edges. Just slip them into the earth like you're tucking in a garden blanket. I painted a few of mine with a brushed bronze finish, and you'd never know they weren't custom made from a garden design shop. The texture catches light, the curves guide the eye, and the whole bed feels instantly elevated. Neighbors asked if I hired someone. I smiled and told them nope, just a placemat and a pair of scissors. It's proof once again that creativity costs so little and offers so much. Now when I walk along my garden paths, these gentle edges remind me of lace, quiet, old-fashioned, lovingly made. And like lace, they don't shout. They simply make everything around them feel a bit more special. Sometimes the right frame doesn't just highlight beauty, it becomes part of it. Do you remember those old sweater bins we used to slide under the bed or stack in the closet? Clear plastic, humble, always handy for this or that. Well, one rainy afternoon, I looked at a few of mine and thought, what if these could grow life instead of just storing things? And that's how I built a mini greenhouse for seed starting out of a storage bin. No fancy equipment, no elaborate shelving, just the same bins you might already have gathering dust in the garage. Let me walk you through it. First, choose a large clear storage bin, one with a tight-fitting lid. The clearer the plastic, the more sunlight it will let through. If it's new, perfect. If it's old and scuffed, even better, a bit of softening from the sun adds character. Using a simple drill or a heated nail, I poked a few drainage holes in the bottom of the bin. Then I filled the bottom 2 inches with seed starting mix, light and fluffy, perfect for tender roots to stretch into. I planted herb seeds and flower seeds in neat little rows. Basil, chamomile, zinnias, marigolds. You can use paper cups, egg cartons, or even yogurt containers if you want to start with individual cells. But honestly, the bin itself works beautifully as an open bed. Then came the lid, gently placed on top to act as a dome, trapping humidity and warmth, just like a professional greenhouse. I propped it open slightly with a chopstick to allow some airflow. When the sun hits it, the inside steams up just a bit, and the magic begins. Within days, tiny green shoots emerged, stronger, healthier than I ever expected. This little greenhouse now sits on a bench in the sunniest part of my garden, protected from wind-curious critters and sudden rainstorms. I lift the lid each morning like I'm opening a treasure chest, and truly, that's what it feels like. What once held sweaters now cradles new life. And the best part, no heavy lifting, no bending low, no harsh chemicals or heat mats, just light air and your nurturing hands. It's a reminder, too, that growth doesn't require a big investment. Sometimes it just needs the right environment and someone who believes in what's possible. Like you, like me, like all of us in our gardens, starting new chapters with old containers and hearts full of hope. We've all had that moment, standing in the garden, gloves on, sun hat tilted just right, and suddenly realizing the trowel is missing again, or the pruning shears, or the packet of zinnia seeds you just had in your pocket. It's not just about being forgetful. It's about how easy it is for the little things to scatter when we're tending to so much. That's where this next Dollar Tree transformation saved me, and maybe it'll save you too. You know those mesh laundry bags? The kind we used to use for delicate blouses or mismatched socks. Well, it turns out they're perfect for organizing garden tools. Here's how I use them now. I took a few mesh bags, the ones with zippers or drawstrings work best, and hung them from small hooks along the inside wall of my garden shed. But you don't need a shed. A simple nail on a fence post, the inside of your back door, or even the edge of a potting bench works just fine. Inside each bag, I slipped a category of tools. One holds hand tools, trowels, small clippers, a bulb planter. Another holds gloves all dry and neatly paired. A third holds seed packets clearly visible through the mesh. The magic here is breathability. The mesh allows air to circulate, keeping moisture from building up. No more rusting metal or moldy gloves. And because you can see through them, you don't have to rummage or unzip every bag to find what you need. I even added little tags to each one, handwritten on scrap cardstock. Planting, weeding, seeding. It's like having tiny drawers, but softer, lighter, and so much more forgiving. The bags themselves weigh next to nothing, and they're easy to move around. On days when my back is stiff, I carry just one filled with the tools for that morning's job and hang it nearby while I work. No bending, no back and forth trips, and the look surprisingly charming. A row of tidy mesh pouches fluttering slightly in the breeze like garden flags with purpose. Sometimes I think about how these bags were made for the laundry room, for the forgotten corners of domestic life. But here they are now in the sun, holding seeds and shears and the quiet rhythm of a gardener's day. Because even in retirement of objects or people, there's always a way to stay useful. And often the simplest systems bring the most peace. There was a time when I used one of those over-the-door shoe organizers to keep my gardening gloves and seed packets tidy. But one summer afternoon, while watering a row of herbs that kept getting trampled by my grandkid's soccer ball, I looked at that organizer and suddenly saw not storage, but space. Vertical space. Space to grow something new. If you're limited on garden room, whether you have a small patio, a narrow fence line, or just want to bring your plants closer to eye level, this Dollar Tree hack might be your new best friend. Here's how it works. Start with a clear or mesh over-the-door shoe organizer. They come with sturdy pockets, usually 12 or more. Flip it upside down and imagine each pocket not as a place for a sneaker, but for a sprig of life. I filled each pocket with a small scoop of lightweight potting soil mixed with a bit of perlite for drainage. Then I planted herbs like parsley, cilantro, mint, and chives, plus a few pansies and marigolds for a splash of color. The roots have just enough room to grow, and the pockets retain moisture surprisingly well. Using a few zip ties or heavy-duty hooks, I hung the whole thing along my back fence where it gets dappled morning sun. You could hang yours on a balcony railing a shed wall or even a sunny garage door. The transformation, stunning. Within a week, tiny leaves peeked out. In a month, I had a full tapestry of edible greens and blossoms cascading from the pockets like nature's own wall art. Every time I walk by, I snip a little basil for dinner or rub lavender between my fingers just to catch its scent. And the best part, no kneeling, no digging, no worries about rabbits or squirrels nibbling at the base. Everything is at standing height, easy on the back, gentle on the joints, and so satisfying to tend. Visitors ask where I bought it, and I love watching their eyes widen when I say, it's a shoe rack. Because what once held shoes now holds life. And that's the beauty of gardening in our golden years. We begin to see purpose everywhere in the small, the simple, the unexpected. This vertical garden reminds me that sometimes we don't need more ground. We just need to look up and trust that growth can happen wherever there's love and light. Twilight in the garden has always felt like magic to me. That quiet hour when the colors begin to soften and the last golden rays of sun kiss the edges of every petal. It's the time when everything glows, not because of the light, but because of the peace. But what if your garden could glow a little longer? What if it could sparkle gently after the sun went down, without wiring, without effort, without spending more than a few dollars? Let me introduce you to one of my favorite little tricks, solar fork garden stakes. Yes, plastic forks. Here's how I turned a handful of clear plastic forks and a box of solar lights into an enchanting evening display. Start with a pack of clear plastic forks, the kind you'd use at a summer barbecue. Then pick up some of those small solar lights from the Dollar Tree's seasonal aisle, the kind with the narrow base that usually sinks into the ground. Instead of pushing those lights directly into the soil tape or glue each one to the handle of a fork, the light becomes the flower and the fork becomes the stem. Then simply push the tines of the fork down into the soil between flowers, along pathways, or tucked among your vegetables. Because the forks are clear, they virtually disappear during the day. All you see is your garden resting in its natural beauty. But then as evening falls and the solar lights flicker on, it's pure wonder. Tiny glowing orbs nestled in the leaves. A quiet constellation scattered beneath your rose bushes. No cords, no outlets, no fuss. Just light where you least expect it. And it's so easy to rearrange. You can move them like fireflies, let them dance through your petunias one week and hover beside your herbs the next. I've even used these on my balcony pots. Just a single glowing light perched above a lavender bush brings warmth and charm to my evening tea. For those of us who may not venture out after dark as much as we used to, these lights bring the nighttime garden closer. They invite us to step out just once more before bed, to feel the air, to hear the crickets, to know that beauty never truly sleeps. And maybe that's what I love most about this little DIY. It proves that even the simplest tools can shine when given a new purpose. Just like you, just like me, still glowing, even in the twilight. There was a time when I fretted over every dry leaf and wilted stem in my garden, especially in the heat of summer. I'd head out with my watering can hands full and knees aching, trying to keep every precious bloom quenched. But sometimes life interrupts a day away, a sore back, or simply forgetting which plant you watered last. That's when I discovered one of the simplest, smartest tricks I've ever used: drip irrigation from plastic bottles. It's so easy, it almost feels like a secret passed down quietly between old friends. And today, I'm passing it to you. Here's how it works. Take a few empty plastic bottles, water bottles, soda bottles, whatever you have on hand. Rinse them well and remove the labels if you like. Using a needle or pushpin, poke 4-6 tiny holes in the cap. Not too big, just enough for water to slowly drip out. Fill the bottle with water, screw the cap back on, and turn it upside down. Then gently press the mouth of the bottle into the soil near your plant's roots. The water will slowly seep out over hours or even days, keeping the soil evenly moist without drowning it. No hoses, no timers, no fancy systems, just gravity, patience, and care. I like to tuck one bottle near each of my thirstiest plants, tomatoes, roses, hydrangeas, and then let nature do the rest. For extra charm, I sometimes paint the bottles in garden colors or cover them in burlap and twine, so they blend with the surrounding greenery. You'd never guess they were once headed for the recycling bin. What I love most is the freedom this gives. On hot days, I know my flowers are getting what they need, even if I'm resting inside. When I travel or have a full weekend of family visiting, I'm not worried about dry soil or drooping petals. And for those of us who've spent a lifetime tending others, children, households, careers, there's something poetic about creating systems that now tend us, that give us time to breathe, to observe, to simply be. These little bottles remind me that support doesn't have to be loud or complex. It can be steady, gentle, invisible to others but life-giving to those who receive it, just like the best kinds of love. So if you've ever worried about keeping up with watering, give this method a try. You might just find that in giving your garden this quiet support, you also give a little to yourself. You know those free wooden paint stir sticks you pick up at the hardware store? The kind that usually get tossed in a drawer forgotten under a pile of old brushes and sandpaper. Well, the next time you come across one, don't toss it. Because in your garden, that little stick is about to become something beautiful, a story marker for what you've planted, and a quiet reminder of what you've nurtured. Here's how I turned them into plant labels that feel more like garden art. Start by sanding the stick just a bit. Nothing fancy, just enough to smooth the surface and round the edges slightly. This softens the feel and prepares it for paint or marker. Then choose your medium. You can leave the wood natural for a rustic look, or paint it in soft pastels or earthy tones that match your garden palette. I like to use outdoor acrylic paint, but even a light watercolor wash sealed with clear spray works wonders. Once dry, use a permanent marker paint pen or even a wood-burning tool to write your plant names: lettuce, sunflowers, marjoram, each one neatly handwritten across the flat face of the stick. Some folks stencil, others use calligraphy. But for me, the wobbly lines and personal script are part of the charm. Then simply press the painted end into the soil near your plant. The stick is just tall enough to be seen clearly, but slim enough not to disrupt the beauty of the bed. Over time, the weather will soften the wood. The paint will fade ever so slightly. And in that gentle aging, something special happens. The marker becomes a memory, a quiet, weathered companion to the plant it guards. You can even add dates notes or tiny drawings, a heart next to your grandchild's sunflower, a teacup for your favorite chamomile. Each stick tells a story not just of what's growing, but who planted it. I walk through my garden now and see names written in my own hand, some from last season, some new. And they don't just guide my planting, they guide my heart back to moments of joy. A rainy afternoon spent painting. The scent of lavender drifting up as I pressed in the label. A proud smile as I showed a neighbor what had bloomed. So often in life we seek grand markers, awards, achievements, titles. But here in the garden, a small wooden stick says enough. It says this was planted with love, and that love still grows. There's something almost sacred about watching a butterfly land in your garden. The way it floats in silent and soft like a living piece of light. No hurry, no noise, just beauty in motion. I've always thought of butterflies as visitors, little reminders that transformation is natural, even necessary. And so I asked myself, what would happen if I invited them to stay a while? That's how I created a butterfly feeding station, a quiet resting place made from the simplest of things: colorful sponges, shallow dishes, and a bit of sweetness. Here's how you can create your own. Start with a few bright kitchen sponges. The kind from the cleaning aisle at Dollar Tree, orange, purple, lime green. The more vibrant, the better. Butterflies are drawn to color, and these soft textures make the perfect landing pads. Cut the sponges into shapes if you'd like: circles, hearts, petals, or leave them square. Then place them in shallow saucers or small plastic plates. I used old teacup saucers and even a cracked ceramic dish that once held a candle. Now for the nectar. Mix a simple solution, 4 parts water to 1 part white sugar. Stir until dissolved and lightly soak each sponge with the mixture. You don't want puddles, just enough for the sponge to stay moist and slightly sticky. Then place your dishes among your flowers, nestled in the lavender beside your butterfly bush or near your favorite container of marigolds. I elevated mine on upside-down pots so I wouldn't have to bend down to refill them. Within a few days, the butterflies found it. They land gently, wings pulsing like tiny fans, sipping from the sponge as if it were a blooming flower. Swallowtails, monarchs, skippers, each one adds its own kind of joy. And I sit nearby, still as can be, watching like a child seeing magic for the first time. It's more than just pollination, it's presence. A moment of shared peace between us and nature. And the sponges, they dry out gently in the sun and I refresh them every few days. It's no trouble at all. In fact, I look forward to it, that small act of tending, of inviting beauty in. This station has become a favorite corner of my garden. Not just for the butterflies, but for me too. Because it reminds me that kindness doesn't need a reason, that we can give something sweet just because we can. And isn't that what gardens are really about? Offering quiet invitations to bees, to birds, to butterflies, and to our own better selves. Some plants are born to climb. Morning glories, sweet peas, beans, black-eyed Susans, they reach for the sky like they remember something we've forgotten. That there's always more above us. That growth, even when tangled, is still beautiful. But not every garden has space for towering trellises or fancy arbors. And not every back or budget can support a trip to the hardware store. So when my clematis began to curl and stretch with nowhere to go, I found the answer in the most unexpected place: a pair of tension rods and a ball of twine. Yes, the same kind of rods you'd use to hang a curtain. Here's how I created a delicate geometric trellis that supports not just my plants, but the poetry of the garden itself. First, I placed 2 tension rods vertically between my fence posts. No drilling, no nails, just a snug twist to hold them in place. You could also wedge them between railings or even inside a large container. Then, using natural jute twine, I began to weave a pattern, zigzagging back and forth between the rods, creating diamond shapes like a trellis you might see in an old English garden. You can also crisscross in a simple grid. Each knot was tied with care but not perfection. I left space for air, for light, for the vines to find their own way. Then I gently guided my plants, the sweet peas, the clematis, even a rogue cucumber vine, to the base of the structure. And nature took it from there. Within weeks, the twine was nearly hidden beneath green tendrils and soft blooms. The rods held steady, practically invisible behind the foliage. And suddenly, my garden had a vertical masterpiece. But here's the part that touches me most. It was all so light. No hammering, no lifting, just soft threading and quiet intention. Something I could do from a seated stool or standing gently without strain. And when the breeze blows through, the plants sway like dancers, supported but never restricted, held but free. Isn't that how we all grow best? With just enough support to feel safe and just enough room to rise. This little trellis reminds me of that balance. It didn't cost a thing beyond a few dollars and a bit of time, but it gave me and my plants the chance to reach upward. And every blossom that opens on that frame whispers the same truth. You don't need grand things to grow tall, just love and something to lean on. There's a corner of my garden that always felt a little too quiet, too shaded for flowers, too tucked away for seating. Just a forgotten space where the grass didn't grow and the breeze rarely stirred. Until one day I placed a large plastic storage tub there and created a small world of stillness and reflection. A water garden. Now that quiet corner has become my most cherished retreat. And it only took a few simple things: a storage bin, some stones, and a bit of imagination. Here's how you can create your own backyard oasis. Start with a large clear or opaque storage tub, one of those sturdy lidded bins used for holiday decorations or linens. I chose one about 2 feet wide and a foot deep, but any size will do. Place it wherever you want your peaceful nook to be, tucked in near a bench, beneath a tree, or along a fence. Then surround the base with stacked stones or bricks to conceal the sides. You can even add mulch or moss around the edges to soften the lines. Now fill the tub with clean water and begin to build your scene. Add floating aquatic plants like water lettuce or hyacinth if you can find them. Drop in smooth river rocks or glass gems from the Dollar Tree for sparkle and depth. Float candles, battery-operated, for safety, for an evening glow. If you like, place a small solar fountain inside to create gentle movement and the soft sound of trickling water. The transformation is almost instant. That overlooked space becomes a mirror, catching the sky, the leaves, and your own reflection. I placed a simple chair nearby. Now every afternoon I find myself drawn to that corner just to sit, to listen, to be. The water changes everything. It cools the air, it calms the spirit. It turns stillness into serenity. And yet, it cost so little. The tub was $6. The rest, things I already had. This water garden doesn't just add beauty, it adds peace. It's accessible too, no digging, no lifting, no strain. If you need to empty it for the season, just scoop the water out with a bowl or tip it gently. And in the colder months, you can fill it with pine cones, candles, or winter greenery for a whole new look. But for now, in summer, it remains my sanctuary. A place where dragonflies visit, petals drift, and the troubles of the day feel just a little farther away. It's a reminder that even the smallest container, when filled with stillness and care, can hold an entire world. You might laugh when I tell you this next idea. I certainly chuckled the first time I tried it. Because who would have thought a pack of plastic party cups could create such a clean, polished edge for a garden bed? But sometimes it's the simplest solutions that surprise us the most. It started with a problem. Grass creeping into my flower beds, blurring the edges, making everything feel overgrown and tired. I needed a border, not just for beauty, but for clarity. A gentle line to say, this is garden. That is lawn. And so I reached for the most unassuming item in my supply bin: plastic cups. Here's how I turned them into garden edging that looks custom-made. Start with any set of plastic cups. I used standard 16-ounce ones in soft cream and sky blue. If you prefer a more natural look, you can paint them first with outdoor spray paint in bronze stone gray or moss green. Then invert them. Place each cup upside down along the border of your flower bed, gently pressing them into the soil so that only about an inch or two of the base is visible above ground. Line them up snugly, rim to rim, like pearls along a necklace. The effect is both charming and surprisingly clean. Each cup forms a rounded edge that keeps mulch in place and grass out. And because they're lightweight, there's no heavy lifting, just a soft step, a press, and you're done. What I love most is how easy they are to adjust. Want to curve around a rose bush? No problem. Need to remove a few for seasonal planting? Just pull and replace. Over time, the cups settle in. Rain softens the soil around them, and a bit of moss may begin to grow where they meet the earth. And somehow, that only makes them lovelier, like something whimsical from a storybook garden. My neighbors asked what kind of edging I used. When I said inverted party cups, their eyes lit up. Not because it was fancy, but because it was possible. And isn't that what we all long for as gardeners? Solutions that are not only affordable, but joyful. This little border project reminded me that boundaries don't have to be harsh or expensive. They can be gentle, creative, and made with things right at our fingertips. In the garden, as in life, it's okay to say, this space is mine. I've shaped it with love. Even if you shaped it with a 1.25 pack of plastic cups. There's something enchanting about a garden at night. It's quieter, softer, like the whole world has taken a deep breath. But what if your flowers didn't disappear with the sun? What if they glowed softly, mysteriously, as if the moon itself had kissed them good night? That's the kind of magic I found in a tiny jar of glow-in-the-dark paint. And oh, friend, it changed everything. I started small, a few river rocks along the garden path. Painted with swirls, stars, and little flower motifs, each one took the paint beautifully. Just a few strokes, then a day in the sun to charge. When night came, they shimmered faintly like little spirits leading the way. Then I got bolder. I brushed the rims of my favorite terracotta pots with a light coat of glowing green. Not thick, just a gentle outline. I painted the tips of some garden stakes too, and even added dots to the edges of my wooden herb labels. As twilight fell, it was subtle at first, a quiet glow here, a gentle shine there. But once the stars came out, so did the real show. My garden lit up like a secret map. The paths were traced in soft light. The edges of my flower beds gleamed. The whole space felt like it had stepped into another world, one where wonder wasn't loud, but it lingered. The best part, there's no electricity, no wires, no risk, just paint, sunlight, and imagination. You can find glow-in-the-dark paint at craft stores or online. I chose a weather-resistant version, but even the basic kind works well with a clear outdoor sealant on top. Apply it during the day while you're sipping iced tea on the porch and watch your garden come to life again when the sun goes down. It's perfect for safety too. The edges of my path are easier to navigate in the dark, especially on those nights when I'm taking one last stroll before bed. But more than anything, this project brought play back into my garden. We don't outgrow the need for wonder, friend. Not at 55 or 65 or 80. In fact, I believe we need it more than ever. These glowing accents remind me that light can come from the simplest things, from leftover paint, from old rocks, from tired hands, still willing to try something new. And at night, when I look out at the gentle glow across my flowers, I think, yes, there's still magic here, and it's mine. There's something deeply satisfying about harvesting herbs, not just growing them, but bringing them indoors, hanging them to dry, and knowing they'll flavor soups, teas, and quiet winter evenings long after summer has faded. But drying herbs doesn't have to be messy or makeshift. It can be elegant. This next Dollar Tree transformation is one of the most graceful garden projects I've ever made, and all it takes are a few embroidery hoops, some cheesecloth, and a bit of string. Here's how to create your own herb drying station, a place where utility meets beauty, and every hanging bundle becomes a little work of art. Start with embroidery hoops. You'll find them in the craft section, usually in wood or bamboo in various sizes. Choose a few that feel right for your space. Then cut pieces of cheesecloth slightly larger than the hoop's diameter. Stretch the cheesecloth across each hoop like a drum, pulling it taut, and tighten the outer ring to hold it in place. You now have a breathable drying surface, perfect for laying out small sprigs of herbs like mint, thyme, oregano, or chamomile flowers. But you can also hang whole bundles. Simply tie short lengths of string around small bouquets of herbs, sage, lavender, rosemary, and loop them from the outer rim of the hoop. Hang the entire hoop horizontally from the ceiling of a covered porch, a shed beam, or a sunny window. The result is stunning. Circles of natural fabric gently swaying with green bundles catching bits of light. They look like floating mobiles or rustic chandeliers, decorative and functional all at once. And because air flows easily through the fabric and around each stem, the drying process is clean and efficient. No mold, no dark corners, no cluttered countertops. I hung mine in a shaded corner of my back porch. Every time I pass by, I catch a whiff of rosemary or lemon balm drifting through the air. In a few weeks, I'll crumble those leaves into jars, label them by hand, and line them up in my pantry like treasures. But even before they're stored, these hoops remind me of something important. Preserving what we grow is as beautiful as the growing itself. This station didn't cost more than a few dollars, and it doesn't take up much space. But it brings rhythm and grace to the harvest, turning the act of drying herbs into a ritual. And at this stage of life, I've come to treasure rituals. Little pauses that say, this moment matters. This leaf, this scent, this season. With every herb that dries gently in the breeze, I'm reminded we're still creating, still saving, still savoring. So here we are, dear friend, at the quiet end of our garden walk. We've wandered through 25 transformations together, each one simple, each one born from creativity and care, not cost. And as the sun sets over these Dollar Tree DIYs, I hope you're feeling what I feel. Not just inspiration, but pride. Because this wasn't really about plastic forks or pizza pans. It wasn't about saving money, though, that's a lovely bonus. It was about something much deeper. It was about reminding ourselves gently, joyfully, that we still have it. The vision, the touch, the spark. You've taken old colanders and made them into planters. You've turned plastic cups into windchimes and storage bins into peaceful water gardens. You've made the overlooked and ordinary into something soft and sacred. And in doing that, you've proven a truth that no age can erase. You are still a maker of beauty. You are still blooming. It doesn't matter if your knees creak or if your hands move a little slower these days. Because what you create now comes from a deeper place, from wisdom, from patience, from a heart that knows how to see potential where others see scrap. Every spoon marker, every glow-in-the-dark pebble, every sponge soaked with nectar, they are all evidence of your creativity, your presence, your life. And that's what I want you to remember. Not that you need to make all 25 of these ideas, just that you can. That you are capable of seeing a plastic bowl and imagining a fountain. That you are still the kind of soul who stops to feed the butterflies. That your imagination did not retire when you did, and neither did your joy. So as you walk through your garden, whether it's a few pots on a patio or a full backyard in bloom, know this: the beauty people admire didn't come from spending. It came from you. Your gentle hands, your steady vision, your quiet hope that things can be made beautiful again. If one of these ideas sparked something in you today, I'd love to know. Which transformation brought you the most joy? Or better yet, which one are you already dreaming of trying next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know who you might inspire. And if you're not yet part of our Golden Seniors Living family, I warmly invite you to subscribe and ring the bell. Each week, we'll keep bringing you gentle, doable garden inspiration, because beauty and creativity are timeless, just like you. Until we meet again, may your hands stay busy, your spirit stay light, and your garden, no matter how big or small, remind you of all the wonder still growing inside you. Happy gardening, my dear friend. And remember, your creativity keeps blooming.